In this problem, it says to use the given data to find the minimum sample size required to estimate the population proportion. So here we have the margin of error 0.04, confidence level 99%, and from a prior study, p-hat is estimated by 0.12. Because we're using or we're calculating the minimum sample size for a population proportion, and we have a prior estimate, we're going to use the formula n is equal to z sub alpha over 2 divided by margin of error squared times the preliminary estimate times 1 minus the preliminary estimate. Okay, so in this problem we have 99% confidence. So off to the side, I'm going to make a little normal distribution. And if I have 99% confidence, that means 99% in the middle. And therefore, there's 1% left over for the two tails, which means there's 0.5% in the right-hand tail and 0.5% in the left-hand tail. So we want to calculate z sub alpha over 2. Alpha is the 1%. Half of 1% is 0.5%, and we change that to a decimal. So we're finding z sub 0.005. So to calculate that, we're going to use inverse norm. And I'm going to do 1 minus 0.005. And the mean is 0 and standard deviation is 1. Now for this particular problem, I get 2.5758 and so on. When I made the answers for this, I rounded the z-score to 2 decimal places, but now we're going to round to 3 decimal places. So for our purposes here, we're going to use 2.58, but when you do this on your exam, you're going to go out to 2.575. They just truncate that rather than rounding. So you'll see, if you're my student, you'll see that on your exam, it'll say there's an exception for 2.575 and 1.645. You want to use those values if those come up. And so now I'm ready to plug this into my formula. So as I said, I'm using, 2.58 just to get the result that I have here. And margin of error is 0.04, and I would square that, multiply by 12%, and then 1 minus 12%. And when I put that into the calculator, I get 439.3224, so this would become 440. If you were doing this on the exam, you would want to take that, let me do that better, 2.575, and you'd be surprised at how much of a difference it makes. Square that times 0.12 times 1 minus 0.12. And then I get 437.6215. And of course, again, we're going to go up to the next whole number, which would be 438. So on your exam, you want to go out to 3 decimal places for that particular value. Normally you would round to 2 and get that. And then here, just for the purposes of this particular problem, we would use 2.58 in order to get that 440. So that's how you do that problem.